Do you know the common dog food ingredient that contains arsenic, which is a known cancer-causing metal? Well, if you guessed rice, then you'd be right. Today, I want to look at why no dog food should contain rice, and I'm going to tell you about another ingredient that's super high in arsenic too, and this one might surprise you. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and if you're on YouTube, click the alert notification. Now, the Environmental Working Group recommends that humans really limit their consumption of rice. They monitor the heavy metals found in the food supply, and they find that they're consistently elevated in foods made with rice, and that includes rice bran. And that's because rice plants really like to suck up arsenic from the soil and the water that they're grown in. Now, all plants will contain arsenic because there's a lot of arsenic-based pesticides, unfortunately, but rice can accumulate 10 times more arsenic than other grain crops just because of the way it's grown, and also because there's actually varieties of rice that thrive in fields that are contaminated with arsenic. So let's take a look at what arsenic does to your dog. Basically, it builds up in the kidney and liver, and it's linked to chronic kidney disease, but it's also linked to myocarditis, dermatitis, and liver disease. And in humans, it's shown to be a carcinogen or cancer-causing substance. And arsenic is a problem for puppies too, especially because arsenic is linked to neurodevelopmental issues. And this is why the Environmental Working Group recommends humans limit their consumption of rice. Now, in 2012, Consumer Reports tested the arsenic concentrations in foods containing rice, and they found that they exceeded 100 parts per billion. So is that concentration more than the FDA allows? Well, I'd have to say no, because the government doesn't have any limits for arsenic in rice and rice products. So after their study, Consumer Reports was on the FDA's butt to set safe limits, and in 2013, the FDA did some of their own testing, and they found the same concentrations of arsenic as Consumer Reports. But they still weren't willing to set a safe upper limit, but they said they'd consider a voluntary limit, and they cautioned consumers to limit their consumption of rice. Now, the European Food Safety Authority has set safe limits, and it's at 100 parts per billion. Now, that's not to mean that 100 parts per billion is safe, but it was meant as a step to at least weed out some of the nastier contaminated rice. So where do you think that nasty contaminated rice goes? Well, pet food. Now, in Europe, they have set safe limits for arsenic in pet foods at 2.3 milligrams per kilogram of food, which is equivalent to a whopping 2,300 parts per billion. Yeah, they allowed 23 times more than they think is safe for humans. And in the US, they don't even care enough to set a safe limit. So with that said, how much arsenic is actually in dog foods? Well, in 2018, researchers from Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine looked at heavy metal contamination in dried dog foods, and they found that the tested foods contained at least double the amount of arsenic in human foods. And these weren't all foods that contained rice. What's really alarming is that foods that contained fish contained a whopping 55 times more arsenic than other dog foods. So, if you're feeding your dog a fish-based diet, it's probably time to stop. And if it contains both fish and rice, well, that's a lot of arsenic. Now, arsenic is dangerous enough that humans are encouraged to limit their consumption, but if your dog's food has rice or fish in it, especially if it's in the top 5 ingredients, then your dog is eating a good serving of arsenic every single day. And to make matters worse, the amount of arsenic in pet foods is more than double that found in equivalent human foods. To put that in perspective, if you were to eat rice or rice products for 4 to 5 meals a week, it would likely be considered too much. But if you eat 3 meals a day, it's less than 1/4 of your diet. Now let's compare that to dogs eating foods that contain rice or fish. 100% of their diet would contain arsenic. And remember, they have at least twice as much arsenic in their food. So Personally, I'd make a point of avoiding dog foods with rice products or fish. But don't make the mistake of trading in rice-based foods for one with legumes, oats, barley, or millet, because these have problems of their own because they're the crops that contain the most glyphosate, which is the cancer-causing substance found in Roundup. If you have the time and the money, it's so much safer to make your own dog food. And we have free recipes right here that you can use. They're all formulated to meet or exceed AAFCO and NRC nutritional requirements. I'd encourage you to go and check them out. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and tell people about it. Thanks for watching.